We think of brands as something to be developed for corporations or even nonprofits, but have you ever thought of branding as something that develops you? Today's hero is Zachary Colman, a branding and design expert for fitness businesses. Through the lens of value positioning, Zach walks us through the process of building an authentic brand, a brand that represents your values, not a brand that changes your priorities. Finally, he reveals how to build a like-minded community around your brand. What struck me the most about this conversation is how easily you can lose yourself in your original vision for your company by trying to develop your brand in an artificial way, in a way that you think is going to gain you things or that is chasing trends. Zach walks us through how to find that original purpose and how to realign ourselves with ourselves. All right, welcome to the Gym Heroes podcast. Today we have Zachary Colman, and I know that you spoke on TED Talks before. I don't know, is it TEDx? Did
It's
I get
TEDx.
that right?
Yes. Yes. TEDx.
TEDx. Yeah. Cool. So you've spoken there before. You're a small business owner. You speak to fitness people. Lots of great knowledge here. So one of the things that I found that was really interesting to me when I was looking into your content was this notion of value positioning. So can you help us understand what is value positioning?
Honestly, I think down to the nitty gritty of what value positioning really is, right? It's really taking what you do as a studio owner or as a fitness professional, and it's really saying, how do we differentiate ourselves from somebody else in our area? Most likely they're brick and mortar. They have they have multiple competitors around them. How do we differentiate ourselves and position the value that we can bring that separates us apart from competitors or partnerships, whatever you want to however you want to kind of look at the strategy or you're kind of working on within that. And there's plethora of ways you can value yourself and position yourself, right? We like to kind of take it from our initial stage. We like to kind of sit down and say, hey, you have your internal values. Your internal values are a good way to kind of take that first step into how do we dictate behaviors in the organization? How do we dictate behaviors in our messaging and our visuals and all that for our audience? But how do we really position ourselves in a way that basically gives people that proposition of coming in and being like, this is the studio that is my community. Like this is who I want to be with, and or employees coming in and being like, hey, I match this vision. I match the values. We have similar values. I want to continue to work here and help this studio follow their vision because we have a very similar vision. So there's kind of multiple ways you can take it, but in a nutshell, it's really just differentiating yourselves and taking those values to kind of utilize towards separating yourself from so much competition that's around you in your environment.
Right. So I've never even thought in these terms before. Like I'm a maybe a new gym owner, maybe I'm an old gym owner, and I've just never put much thought into this. How do you start building that value positioning?
Yeah, I always usually see two kind of spots, especially for studio owners. Um, the first spot is we've never done values before, and or you're so small, you're only a one or two person, studio. You're just kind of getting to that point of trying to get to the next level, and you're like, do I even need these? And the way I kind of look at it from a beginning standpoint is really just looking down at your core values as a person. What are your core values? What do you like? Because usually what tends to happen is we all, as people, we are the leaders of our organizations, and the way we act and behave is going to articulate the growth and the evolution of the people we hire, the customers we bring in. And so you are the brand. So kind of look at it from that perspective, especially if you're just starting out. It's, what are those things in my life that I value the most? What are the things that I feel are my personal values? Because those personal values will dictate the growth of eventually having brand values. And so I personally, through my story, I've evolved my values multiple times because I've evolved as a person, but I've also utilized those not just to do stuff within the organization, but what do I need to do in my personal life to kind of give me less burnout for the organization side, right? So, for instance, I'm a very big component of connection. Like, connection is very ingrained in me. I'm a creative at heart. I love to build things. I love to create values. I love to do workshops. I love all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I lost it. I didn't know that as my business grew, I didn't know that was something that I lost. So I lost that value. And so I actually had to take a step back and be like, huh, like, how do I refine my values? And so I had to bring things back into my life that I kind of lost because of that burnout. Right. So, for instance, I started going back to the gym again. I have 3 young kids. I used to eat, very healthy. I still try to. 3 young kids, it's kind of hard, but try to eat healthier. I started going back to the gym more, and that just realigned with my value of connection. Like, these are my people. This is where I love to be. This is where I need my time for visionary time. As an organization owner. And so having that personal time started to be a KPI for me. And then I started integrating that value of connection into everything that I did, not just as an organization, but as you saw through my TEDx, through my messaging, through like what I'm doing. Because those will also bring in the types of people from a psychological counterpart that you actually want to be members of your said studio, right? So it's kind of a two-way street there, but that actually helped me through my what I would call valley of death period, on like, hey, like, this is the time that I need to, you know, figure out what's next for my brand and my business. And there's way I could always go through the other values if you wish, but um, overall, I think connection for me was probably the most important because it took me back away from behind the desk and started saying, "Hey, how can I hit some of those things that I may have resistance towards, to help the growth of my brand?"
Excellent. I know. I did a podcast. I have a podcast outside of Gym Heroes that I started way back in 2020. Unlike most of the podcasts started in 2020, this one's still running, and I started it for a certain purpose, mostly to speak to martial artists about pedagogy. And um, there was a segment of martial artists that I wanted to speak to that are more. They were more like me and my background, but a different segment of martial artists, the jujitsu people, actually took to the message. And so over the course of several years, I found myself speaking to an audience that was not the audience I set out to speak to, and that's okay. But uh, the KPI, if you will, was to make a difference in this group, and I'm speaking to this group. So
Hmm.
towards the end of last year and the beginning of this year, I've recalibrated that to try and be more intentional about reaching the group I set out to reach, the karate and the taekwondo people. Um, and yeah, that it reminds me of that. Like, I do jujitsu as well, but my background's taekwondo, and I really wanted to change the way they do training because it's very old fashioned and it hasn't been updated in many years. And I just because other people were more receptive to the message, it just naturally I lost my way. And you do have to step back and be like, wait, hold on a second. This is not what I started out to do. I'm talking to people I like, but not it's not the people I set out to change.
Well, yeah, and I think it's common. I think it's common for anyone. anyone, no matter what industry you're in, to evolve as a person. You're going to learn more, especially, I know you guys also work with a lot of fitness business owners and with your software, and you'll tend to see that. I mean, I've seen personally with all of the studio owners that I've worked with, and I don't know if you've ever heard of the Valley of Death period, but the Valley of Death period is usually, for anyone who doesn't know, it's kind of a time in business when you kind of have to make it to the next level. And there's multiple things around it, but usually it's you're not making as much bottom line because you have to start upgrading your team, upgrading certain situations within the organization that you may not even know you need to do, right? And um it's a mindset. It's really a mindset thing. At the end of the day, it's like, oh, I have to overcomplicate to make things more simple. It's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that because they go through this spectrum in their life where, especially with starting a business, where we're all learning as we go. We're taking on mentors, we're utilizing certain softwares, where we're learning from where we're at in the stage of the business cycle that we're in, for our growth. And you get held back from certain types of situations in your personal life. Like, for instance, for me, it was my definition of success, right? It was, hey, I was so good at I was a saver. My parents were really bad at saving, and I ended up in the business correlating that thought of success with, oh, I just have to have a a crap load of money in the savings account, like, portraying that sense of money, right? And so I had to take a step back and kind of go, okay, like, what do I have to work on personally? And the only way I could do that was to take a step back and find those values in my life, that then portrayed to my team, because you have to lead by example. And that's really what it comes down to, and turning from a manager to more so of a leader, um, in your respective field, so that employees want to work there. um, I know I brought up a little bit about, he said, how do you get started? Well, how do you let's say you're a studio owner, and you're what I call stage 3 of studio ownership, which is, between the 500 and a million. It's right at that key point. I feel like it's like we need to start bringing on better team. We need to start systematizing a lot more, focus on retention, focus on sustainability. And that is a time when it's like, well, we thought we had values, but how do I go through my whole team now? We have a whole team, and how do we really, like, create values for myself? It's like, well, you don't at that point. At that point, if you already have values, they're probably going to evolve. And so what it more looks like is going through your whole team and saying, all right, let's find these people and why we like them, and why we, I'm not going to say dislike them, but why we least like them. Like, let's find these values as a team, because now your organization, is going to behave around multiple people in the organization, not just you. And so that's how, if you were a little bit bigger, you'd probably go back and say, hey, how do we really find these values? And I'm a very big component of, um, developing brands that develop people. And so I'm a very big component on having these workshops with the team. Like, let's figure this out together so that how to, teach you to fish. So once you reach that next stage, you could possibly do some of this on your own. You don't have, of course, it's nothing wrong with getting a consultant, or a specialist, but we're in an industry where we need to lead by example. And the only way we're going to lead by example is if we at least know how to do some of this on our own and lead the rest of the team around it. And so that those values then portray into multiple things. We talked a little bit about community, right? Like, how do you utilize those values to create your offers? How do you utilize those values and your vision? How do you utilize all that to create your audience, right? You talked a lot about your audience and how you have to switch from a demo perspective. Well, there's also a psychological counterpart to those demos, right? Like, a great example here is, and I use this quite a bit, is if you're a yoga studio, right? You're not going to have full-fledged CrossFit free weight machines running around your facility, right? It's going to portray the wrong audience. And that's not necessarily a visual, that's an experience, but that goes to visuals as well. You're not going to be a yoga studio and have bright reds, and um, harsh edged type communicating in other aspects. And so there's ways you can take those values and really live by them and utilize all of your communication when it comes to not just hiring, but your marketing as well.
Real quick before I put you back into the episode, Gymdesk has powerful yet intuitive features to grow your business, and there's a few really great features I'd like to highlight. The first is a deep, best-in-class email and SMS marketing system with automation tools to make your life as a business person so much easier. It's like having a dedicated, full-featured email service provider native to your gym software. We're really proud of it, and it's something that we've recently overhauled. And in addition to all the stuff a good management software should do for you, like member management, attendance, booking, scheduling, and reporting, you can set up an easy, simple, attractive point of sale system to sell merchandise in person or through your website with just a few clicks. And if you like to provide members-only content, we have a content management system that lets you choose who can see what content and when, all visible from a member's web portal and the Gymdesk user app. So give your gym the lift it deserves. Go to gymdesk.com or click the link in the description. Excellent. So when you talk about building brands that develop people, how do you, that's perfect for a fitness studio. So how do you build a community around a brand like that?
So we have kind of this process that we kind of go through with most of our studio owners. We usually start with that positioning side, right? Like, so you want to sit down and we want to figure out, like I said, like you need to figure out your values, you need to figure out your vision and your mission. We go through workshops on that kind of stuff. Like we work at it with the team. Like that's the whole point. Like it's not just like, hey, here's a logo, go throw it up, right? It's like, no, like you need to understand that every choice that we're making is due to certain circumstances. And so that even comes down to your audience, right? So we would possibly sit down with them and say, hey, like let's look at those audience profiles that you have created. Where do they match on that spectrum of what you're trying to establish, what you're trying to grow the studio into? And we would go through an exercise on possibly going through every single member they have, kind of looking at them and saying, hey, like, what are the types of people that you want to bring in here? Right? What are the types of people? It's now time that you shouldn't just be trying to spray the wall with 18-year-olds to 65-year-olds. If you're a big box gym, that makes sense, right? You can have a broader audience, but when you're a smaller studio, when you're trying to compete against these markets of other studios, and I'm going to use a good example here. My cousin was telling me how she was looking for studios, and she recently left one recently because they didn't. She actually worked for one, and they didn't pertain by their values. But that's not the story. She was telling me how she's like, there was this great gym. She's like, studio I was looking at, and she's like, I'm really at a point in my life where I need something to work on for my mental health, not just physical health. And she found an actual boxing gym that was in a whole state away from her. That she was like, it's perfect for me. She's like, this is exactly what I want. And I'm not sure what her decision was, but she was talking to me about how she was like, I'm thinking about moving there just so I can utilize this studio. That's how powerful it was, because it was like I was like telling her, I'm like, let me guess, the boxing gyms. She's like, I'm looking at gyms because I need something for my aggression. I need something to help me get through certain grieving situations that I'm going through. And she's like, most of these boxing gyms I'm looking at aren't really focusing on that mental side. They're more so like, let's just do hit and like help you with aerobics and stuff like that, and or gender specific. And she was like, This one 100% focuses all of its classes and offers on mental well-being. And so it portraying, she matched that audience, she matched that community. And so when you say, how do you kind of build that community, it's really just diving into that, back to that positioning. Like, how do you really find those right people? And unfortunately, over time, the ones that aren't really a fit for you anymore. And yes, that can go into pricing, that can go into all that stuff as well, because that's part of offer development, right? But you want to portray to those types of people you want to bring in, because those are the ones that want to be around like-minded people. So those values are kind of those guides for those behaviors on the types of people and the types of stuff you want to come in. It's only one spectrum of it, but that also goes into your visuals and your visual communications as well. Your visuals, like I said earlier, and people are going to be more resonant to work with a company and or go to a studio that they subconsciously have a relationship with them through the visuals that they're creating. And that's how important branding is, right? That's the importance of that branding component. And from there, it comes down to matching the online and the offline experiences, right? Like, if I was looking to be part of a community, I'd want to make sure that the online presence, the online situations that I'm doing match those values, match those things. And that can go into multiple different arenas. But in short, it's, you need to make sure that you're the same online as you are off. The experience is the same. If I go to a studio and the user experience is horrible, I can't find what I want, they're saying they do this, they're saying they do that, you know, and there's no real reviews of the similar people I want to work with, to me, that's the first sign that I'm not going to go there. The customer service, if I call them and they're all talking about, mental well being, and I get someone who's a complete, not nice person on the phone, or like an AI agent or something, and I'm like, well, no, I thought this was about community. I thought this was about mental, like, that would not resonate with me. And so I would probably not want to work out there. It goes to the way you do your marketing and stuff as well. Like, what types of marketing directions are you going to bring these people in? And so we're a very big component on matching that the visuals and the online presence, to make sure that your positioning is there. Like, they can feel it. They can feel that community, and that those are the types of people that they want to work with. It's kind of like a free vetting process. It's a vetting process without having to have a sales guy call millions of people, right? That's really what it comes down to. And then lastly is matching that community aspect in your locality with your digital experiences. And so I'm a very big component of utilizing warm marketing tactics more so than I am Facebook marketing. Like, we come in and we say, hey, like, you don't need to spray the wall, especially for a smaller studio, with 80 different marketing tactics. Like, you don't need to go and do all these Facebook challenges. You don't, they work to an extent, but in reality, people want community. So what you need to do is you need to match that community. Go out and go to community events. Go out and utilize your Google business profile, for instance, to try to build advocacy. And so, like, we have a strategy where we're like, hey, you can move up in the rankings as well as build advocacy with just a simple tactic of asking for a review from your members, and then utilizing that, leveraging that review for like a free session for a friend, because you're good members are probably going to have friends that have similar values, right? So that helps spread that community and build that community together. And it's kind of a waterfall effect. I mean, as you know, this is an industry where I look at it, I don't look at it as a value play. I don't look at it as a volume play. You're kind of right in the middle. you can still you can still work with a good price. You don't have to be cheap. People are willing to pay $200 a membership if for a boutique studio, if it matches their community. If they're willing to do that. Secondly, of course, to me, I think is always just how far it is away from their house. To be real, it's very simple. Like I'll drive 2 miles to a studio if I feel like they have great customer service and I know that I'm being part of a community that's going to help me grow more so than a mile away. But I will say I'm going to try to pick something close to my vicinity. I'm not going to drive 6 miles to a studio, right? Um, Unless it's a a bigger studio and they have 6 7 locations or something and I can use my membership if I'm across the city or something like that. Um but yeah, that's really I think how you could start building a community, and a great tactic to start that would be looking at all of your members, taking all of your members no matter how many you have, and saying, okay, let's take those members and let's put them from who's been here the longest down here who's been here the least, right? And then start going down that list, just coming up with a campaign where you send 5 review requests, a day, and do it something more, a little bit more community based. Hey, I love that you're here. We're really looking to see how great you feel about the studio. Would you be willing to leave us a review? We're also offering anyone who leaves a review, we're offering a free pass to any of their friends to come in and try the studio. Now you're utilizing your own members to build advocacy. You know, Starting at the top is better because those are the ones that are going to be, your biggest fans because they've been there the longest. So that's why I say start from top to least and just do that every day for a month. And then, you know, you'll see how much your local search skyrockets just from having that advocacy of those reviews. And now you have more people that are on top of mind. They're like, man, they asked for a review. I love going there. Maybe I should ask my friend. Maybe tomorrow I'll ask my friend. And that's branding in a nutshell. That's brand reputation in a nutshell. So that's how I could say a good starting point. Is it great for gyms that are just starting out? Probably not. They're still in validation stage. I say, you kind of need to pay the bills. And so you need to learn. So go out there and just get members, just to start. But once I say you hit about the 250, between 250 to 500K mark is a good spot to kind of say, hey, it's time to find a much more sustainable lead model, and kind of move away from spending my time creating challenges or my time trying to sell these people and more so focus on those profit generating tasks like bringing in better people, figuring out your offers, your price structures, and all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. The connectedness point is so important because um, sports has made a big comeback. Pickup sports made a big comeback, and
Mhm.
one of the reasons it has made such a comeback is because after COVID-19, everyone who wants to take care of their health, they want to do it in a way that is social.
Mhm.
And if you don't emphasize a social aspect or dimension to what you do, there's not a lot difference between what you do other than providing equipment and instructors. Not even instructors really, just the equipment. There's not a big difference between that and like the home-based programs that are out. There's all kinds of high quality, subscription-based programs around. One of the key dimensions you have at your favor there is the social element, meeting
Mhm.
people, being around people, actually interacting with your instructors in real time, your coaches real time. Um, if you're not emphasizing that, like, what are you doing? Like, this is one of your differentiators, an easy one.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually worked in, like, you hear a lot of people in this industry talk about uh we used to own a gym, we used to do that. Nothing against them, but 90% of them failed at owning a gym, and then they decided to do marketing. And I always thought that was, and I don't think it's head trash. I know that there's a couple or a few that were like, hey, we're just going to sell and move on, and now we know this industry, which is great. I do know a couple of great agencies or even management firms in the industry that do that. But you me personally, I came from a different perspective. I came from the background of sports, funny enough. And so I used to, before we transitioned to working with gyms fully, we worked with a lot of professional athletes. We helped them build their brands. And I came to a point where I was like, I want to help the smaller people. I think that there's a way we can help these studio owners kind of reach it, and they know more about business, to be honest, than a professional athlete. But I worked for the Phoenix Suns. I worked for these teams, and I saw this aspect of um, community and bringing in like for a sports team, and I'm like, hey, why isn't that same kind of premise getting pushed over to the studio environment? I think after 2020, I think that we can all say we thought, hey, everything's going to be working out from home. But I think the exact opposite's now happening. Now everyone's like, no, I need to go out and I need to find a place that I feel comfortable going to, that I have people that I can relate to, that are my community. And funny enough, are kind of my mental place, to go and work out and to be around like-minded people. And so I saw that spectrum in the sporting industry, and I'm like, how can we bring that in? How can you bring that environment in? Does that mean you're going to have loud music and like scorecard, like scores going across? No, I'm just saying, like, how do you create an atmosphere, environment, experience that makes people root for you, makes people want to go to your studio, makes people want to be your advocate. And it all comes back to just tailoring as much as that ethos of what you're trying to build um, into the experience for your consumers and your employees.
Wow, excellent. Man, that's a lot to chew on.
I
It,
know I'm a chatterbox. I have 3 young kids, and so I usually wake up and I'm on my third cup of coffee by now. So if I'm chatting a lot, that's why.
no, it's good stuff, man. If my listeners want to reach out and pick your brain a little bit more, or get your help, where can they find you?
Yeah, definitely. So, we just launched our sub brand Gymmark recently. It's a website subscription based platform. Usually, how it really works is we have developed that experience on allowing people to come in from a front end experience, and how it sync it with management platforms like yourself, so that people can come in and they can see schedules, they can see, you know, the trainers, they can see all of the classes and programs, offers, all that is synced on to the front end effectively, so that, you know, long story short, you can start building that sustainable lead flow through your online presence, through online, without having to do any gimmicky marketing tactics, right?
Hmm.
And so if you want to hear more about that, just head over to Gymmark. We do offer 2 months free with a subscription. So with a year paid subscription. So head over to Gymmark now and set up a call, and you can get a demo of that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. I hope we can do this again sometime.
Yeah, thank you.